So this is a recent power struggle, meltdown, or emotional blow up. And we're kind of shifting gears after talking about these strengths and struggles, thinking of a time when there was a recent, really a struggle, and what you were telling yourself about what that meant, what feelings came up for you as a parent, what gifted trait might be driving this behavior, and what you could try next time to respond with curiosity or compassion. So this reflection is from the other perspective. When have you felt, and if the first one maybe was kind of a surprise or awe, this one is that exhaustion and overwhelm, and maybe the first one was too. How does it change your perspective to consider it as a gifted trait? And I'll send this to everybody so you'll have access to this going forward. Okay. So giftedness and gifted kids, intense kids, they thrive with the right balance. Let me see and make sure that I'm not in the way again. Oh, uh-oh. Whoop, there we go. Okay, I was good. Okay, so they're the first ones to impulsively want to jump into a deep puddle, but also the separation anxiety at bedtime is so intense, or when they're potty training, like they need you right there. And so that safety of really needing to know that you're there a lot of times is, and safety to express themselves without judgment. So being able to share, again, thinking of the early time that you knew that they were different, and then being able to be vulnerable about those very intense feelings with you and not mask and show what they show everybody else in order to be accepted, is your ability to say, it's okay that you have these really intense feelings, and I'm here and I can listen and hold it with you. The structure, the predictability really helps with overwhelm. So you might have a kid that does amazing at school and struggles at home because at school there is this predictability and black and white consequences and just very clear expectation of what is ahead. And that helps with their anxiety and their overwhelm. Support to handle the big feelings and perfectionism. I like to think sometimes it's like our kid is intellectually 3 years ahead and emotionally 3 years behind. And so when we're talking to them about intellectual things, we're really adjusting their age. And when we're working with them about emotional things, we're talking to them like they're younger. And sometimes that support is what they need in order to regulate their emotions. And they'll eventually catch up. When we're adults, we're adults. But they might kind of always seem like a younger version of an adult just because they have this depth and intensity of emotion. The challenge, and this is, we're going to talk coming up about dealing with perfectionism, but they need challenge. They need to be experiencing failure in order for their brain to be getting what it needs and not enter into kind of that boredom and depression. But the pressure to perform is very difficult. So when the challenge comes in the place of a highly competitive environment, or a level of academics that feels like it's pitting kids against kids, then a lot of times that does not work in the way that we want it to. And then the connection to know that they're not too much and to feel understood and to feel liked and loved because of their intensity, and treasured. And so I really love giving that gift to my clients when a lot of times their parents are burned out for right reasons. And I get burned out from my own 3 gifted ADHD kids, but being able to love on somebody else's kids. And that's where this, the idea of being in community, because you will get burned out with gifted kids. They have this insatiable need for all these supports and all this depth of feeling and learning, and having other adults in their lives that can love them because of their intensities really helps balance out when you feel like your energy is running dry. So I like this question just to kind of jot down and bring back home, but asking your child, when do you feel most like yourself? When do you feel like you can just totally be yourself and it feels really good? So I'd write that one down for later. So your child, again, going back to that challenge idea, they need emotional support, structure, and connection. And that challenge inevitably means they won't be perfect, which is a sore subject for these very intense kids. But us coming alongside them, we are going to be the part of their brain that hasn't fully developed yet, their cerebral cortex, their logic. And we're going to have that positive self-talk with them and provide the physical co-regulation. Like, let's take some deep breaths together. Let's give a hug. Let's hold hands. What do we need to do? How can I be there while you're doing this thing? Just so that my energy, my positive energy rubs off on you. Um, and they might need all of this in order to level up in competitive cheerleading or baseball or chess tournaments or any other competitive arena where they're facing these challenges. They need that second person more than peers their age that are typical would need. So let's look at three main areas that parents face and some strategies. So power struggles. I just want to kind of briefly talk about pathological demand avoidance. You might see it abbreviated PDA, and you really hear about it more in the circles of autism and neurodivergence. And so I just want to look through the lens of that pathological demand avoidance, not as a diagnosis for very intense kids, but just as another way of looking at what might present as a power struggle. Um, it's not that they don't like the demands, it's that they feel overwhelmed by them. And so just the simple things like go brush your teeth or get your shoes on, it triggers that resistance in them, not because they just want to be difficult and they just want to make your life harder because they're being lazy, but because their nervous system interprets it as a threat to their autonomy and their sense of control. And usually at this point in the day, whether it's they just woke up or they're going to bed, they've been at school all day, or they've been home with you and there's been all kinds of demands. It's these minute, boring little things that can lock a kid up to where they can't feel like they can move forward. And so very intense kids who are sensitive, anxious, perfectionistic react strongly because they fear failure, they feel pressured, or they need to feel in control. It's like, I need you to go do this right now is a very difficult thing for them when so often in life they kind of see themselves as an adult and relate to adults really well. And then you have this parent-child dynamic that comes into play. So if you were to think about a recent, oh, let's see. We're not going to do a reflection again. Pause on that. All right. So, ooh, okay. So instead of pushing harder in terms of power struggles, instead of just becoming the bigger and the louder and the more powerful, we want to shift into collaboration. And this happens earlier for very intense kids than for typical kids. This idea of like dictatorship to democracy, usually it develops between 0 to 18. But with gifted kids, we bring the democracy in a little bit earlier and we start to say things like, okay, you can brush your teeth now or in 5 minutes. Like we give them more choices. And this comes naturally to some parents to avoid the conflict and they see their child able to regulate their nervous system and get it done. But other parents have a really hard time with it. They're like, I just want to be able to tell them what to do and then do it. To which I would say, like, how is that working for you? And how is that working for your kid? And how can really we teach your kid ultimately when you're having a hard time when somebody gives you a command, maybe you can trick yourself and say, oh, I can use this toothbrush or this toothbrush. They can give themselves some choices and help their brain to feel calm and move forward. That's ultimately our goal, is not to get them to become little robots, but to teach them how to motivate themselves to get through life in a way that's not always nails on a chalkboard. So if you're noticing these intense power struggles, just asking yourself, what if this isn't about them having a strong will, but just the way they're wired, they shut down when they have these demands placed on them? And how can we kind of get around that wiring a little bit? So it goes back to the core belief of they want to please you. And if they could do better, they would. And maybe they need some support. And really it gets into the extreme with kids who struggle and with autism, and maybe their parents also have autism and feel burned out. And so the recommendation there is just let it go. Just let the demand go. Let everybody have a moment to get their nervous system together in order to avoid abuse. And that's always the question. It's like, am I at my limit? Do I just need to walk away? And we face that a lot with our intense kids, of us knowing when we need to regulate our nervous system so that we don't end up screaming at them or hitting, or giving them the silent treatment and kind of replaying some of the experiences that we had in our childhood. So helping them calm their nervous system becomes the main focus. And if this is often the case for you, or if you're struggling with this, then that's where therapy is super helpful. So little plug for therapy. So the next one is perfectionism and anxiety. And so I hear this a lot, where the dad will say, or the kid will say to the dad, like, you do it perfectly every single time, and I mess up all the time. I'm just not good at this, and I don't want to do it. And the dad will say, well, I practice a lot, and that's why I'm so good at it. So you just need to practice more, and then you'll get better. And so they'll practice, and the kid will blow up every time and tell themselves that they're terrible and tell the dad and scream, and it's just a big thing. And so another way in, a way around that wiring of perfectionism and like us telling them how to be more perfect, is saying to them when we are failing, like, hey, I tried this new video game today and I was terrible at it. I really wanted to quit. I wanted to rage quit every time. Or I'm doing this new thing at work and it's so hard. I get sweaty because I'm so nervous. Or, just sharing about a time when they've not done well with something, and model that we try new things and we make mistakes. And if we're failing at something new, then that means that we're growing. We're in a position where we're going to be better eventually. So another idea is, when you play with them, give yourself a handicap so that you're less precise, whether it's throwing with your non-dominant hand, or saying, hey, let's, throw the ball while we're standing on one foot and we'll start over when we drop it 10 times, or we'll get a popsicle when we drop it 10 times. So like leading into the idea that we're going to drop it a lot, and that's okay. And it's fun to try and stretch ourselves. So reframe practice as experiments. So what if we make this change? What if you try, I keep coming back to baseball. It's been a heavy baseball season in our family, but what if you try switch hitting, hit it from the other side? Let's see what happens. And just getting them to buy into trying something new, being playful, and getting feedback of like, oh, well, maybe we should swing faster, swing earlier, or whatever. If that failure is just feedback in order to learn. And then as you're going with perfectionism, it's like praising their effort. So saying to them, I've really noticed that you've been laying out your clothes before school. Like, you've really been making an effort to make the mornings go more smoothly, versus, hey, we've gotten to school on time every day this week, but it's been like a screaming match every single day. It's like, let's focus on the effort of, you've been working hard at this, or I saw you stayed so focused on building that Lego set, even though it was difficult. Or I know when it was time to leave grandma's the other day, you were upset, but you managed your emotions and you cooled down in a way, on your own. I saw you doing your deep breathing, whatever it is, just noticing the progress or the process and their effort, versus that kind of superficial, oh, we did it, but what about the cost that it took to get there? Or sometimes when it's so easy for them to get an A and you're like, yay, you got A's, it's kind of doesn't feel good because they know it was like a half-hearted effort. So praising the things that they're working hard at and trying really hard to do. And then the last little section of executive function and emotional regulation. And this kind of comes in with the support and the really the support of, how do we support our kids? Executive functioning skills is like planning and getting through difficult tasks. And there's like 11 parts to getting through something difficult. And what's so difficult about intense parents coaching and parenting intense kids is that we're wired differently. We might have, overexcitabilities and intensities that they don't have. Things come naturally for us that do not come naturally for them. And when it's time to coach it, we're like, just do it. It's just so intuitive for us. Just do it. A to B. It's just a thing. But it's not their natural wiring. And it's so helpful when we can bring in another adult who can break down that it's actually A to Z. There's a lot of steps in here that we need to work on, and it comes really naturally for your parent, and they can't see all those steps. And when their parent tries to do it, it's just this big blow up. And so you may need to bring another adult, break the tasks into steps, and then use a visual like a chore chart or a pictures on a chore card, or even steps like written out for a morning routine. This might look like a little sing-songy voice for different skills in sports, or getting our work done, or getting our backpack packed up at the end of the day, and modeling calming tools proactively, like before you need them, not like, oh my gosh, you're having a panic. Let's do our deep breathing. And you've never practiced it before. And the schools are getting really good at doing like mindfulness breaks and teaching the kids different stretches and breaths that are to calm them down. But really, the best thing is you modeling for them in your moments of stress, or when you know you're going to be going into a stressful thing. Like, I'm going to take some deep breaths. I'm going to visualize myself doing well. A cup of tea helps me relax, or telling them I need a 10-minute timeout, or a hug would help me feel calm, or I've got to get my exercise in because it resets my brain. And so you're just modeling out this life of incorporating these calming techniques so that they have access to them when they need them. And when we meet these needs, then we reduce their overwhelm, and that benefits them and us. Okay, so let's see where we are in the presentation. We're going to jump ahead again before we go back. So here's a reflection moment. Let's see if I can get all the way out. I don't think I can. Okay. Okay, so thinking about last summer and how it felt for your family. This may take a moment because it's hard to remember. But summer 2024, what was going on? Your kids were a little bit younger, as before the school year had started. Was it chaotic, fun, exhausting? Do you remember it? Did it just fly by? And then ask yourself, why do you think it felt that way? What's the first thing that comes to mind? Not enough time, too much travel. What part of summer parenting brings up the most stress for you? Lack of structure, lack of routine, needing to make more meals. What rhythms or rituals would help everyone feel more grounded? That's a hard question to answer if you've never really looked into this, but it's kind of the opposite of whatever brings up the most stress for you. Having meal prep done, having family time together, being home 3 nights of the week, having days where we have nothing planned, or having the days planned. What's one small thing you can commit to this summer for connection, not perfection? So this is kind of reflecting back to, is it a win if you modeled calming skills for them this summer? Or if you had some time to do the things that they love, that they're interested in? And so obviously, through everything we've talked about, raising kids can be, well, intense kids can be isolating and make you question your parenting constantly. And so I would love for you to try out some of these affirmations, just saying it to yourself and noticing how you feel in your body when you think it or when you write it down. And just noticing how it helps you to reframe this difficult task that you have. And summer can feel like a break, or it can feel like a battleground. And so just thinking of what little insight do you want to take with you after today. I have an evening workshop at the office here for $199 for up to 2 adults. So you could bring a friend if you don't have the co-parent to come along. And we'll spend some time really developing a summer plan and getting into a little bit more of the specifics of your kid. And then, of course, you're always welcome to reach out for one-on-one coaching and strategizing together.